So in the last session, we started talking about homeotic genes as genes very important during development and as genes which are highly conserved during development. So here you can see the homeotic genes, okay, and we can see their alignment, okay, between Drosophila, mice, very early vertebrates like Amphioxus, and the common ancestor. So they think that these genes, homeotic genes, are coming from a common ancestor, a hypothetical ancestor, let's say, and from this ancestor they have been diverged, okay, we have a diversification, and we can see that these genes, for example, if we look at Drosophila, okay, we have less redundancy, we don't see gene repetition. And as we can see in mice, for example, the HOX-C in Drosophila has its paralogs in mouse. So we have much more complexity in vertebrates like mice. So we have HOX-A, B, C, D. So we have different copies. And for example, for each gene, sometimes we have many isoform or many copies because of this complexity present in vertebrates. If we look at these homeotic genes, we can see that all of them, they are arranged on the same chromosome, and they are grouped in clusters of genes. Okay, they are grouped in cluster of genes or groups of genes, and these genes are present in tandem, the one next to each others, okay, in a sequence. And interestingly, they found out that if we follow up the coat color, we can see that in Drosophila and mice, and also in different other organisms, that these genes are contributing in the development of the anterior posterior body axis according to their localization or to their position on the chromosomes. So for example, in the labium here in blue, we can see that it's present at the 5' of this DNA, and we see that it's involved in the formation, so it's expressed first and it's involved in the formation of the most anterior structures. And then comes this color, the orange gene, the red one, deformed scrotum, the one in yellow, etc. So the same thing goes for the contribution or the expression pattern of these genes in mouse according to the anterior posterior body axis. So for example, here the gene abdominal 8, for example, which is expressed in the last abdominal segment, the 8th abdominal segment, here this gene is present at the 3' end of the DNA, and it contributes, it's expressed very late, you see, at the most posterior pole in order to form the posterior structures, okay, and the same is present in different organisms. So you see that we have high conservation of these genes during development, and here I have to note that the genes, okay, for example, here we have the HOX genes in different species are called paralogs. For example, if we compare this gene in blue between mouse and Drosophila, these genes are called paralogs. So the paralogs are the similar genes but present in different species. So, just here you have to correct that the genes specifying more cranial or anterior structures lie at the 5' end, not the 3'. You have to correct it at the 5' end, and the genes lying at the 3' end are controlling the formation of posterior development. So just substitute 3' by 5' and 5' by 3' here. So in a human, for example, we have more copies because we have more gene redundancy and more complexity in this organism. So in Drosophila, we only have HOMC, the homeotic gene complex, which are cluster of genes specifying the craniocaudal axis, as I explained, while in human we have more than a copy. We have HOX A, B, C, and D arranged exactly as we have seen in Drosophila and expressed the same way according to their position on the chromosomes. They are contributing to the formation of anterior-posterior body axis. So here we are going to talk about homeotic genes in Drosophila, since these genes are first discovered in this organism. So here I will remind you about one thing I explained it last time regarding the function of HOX genes or homeotic genes. So HOX genes are example of homeotic genes present in Drosophila, and they are important for the organizing of the body. They organize the body plan through development. So you should know that these HOX genes in Drosophila, they do not contribute in the formation of the segments themselves. So the segments are formed, and later the HOX genes come in order to give each segment its own identity. So HOX genes are giving each segment its own identity, plus they are important in the localization of specific organs at their specific place and the insertion of specific appendages to their specific position. Like, for example, they tell these wings that they should be inserted to the second thoracic segment and not to the third or the first one, or to any of those abdominal segments. And the same goes for the legs. They tell these appendages that they should be inserted on the first, the second, and the third thoracic segments, and ventrally, not dorsally like the wings. So you see the role of these HOX genes. So in Drosophila, the homeotic genes are localized on the chromosome number 3. Okay, I remind you that in Drosophila we have 4 pairs of chromosomes. So on the chromosome 3 we have these homeotic genes, which are grouped in 2 complexes. The first complex is called antennapedia or antenna C, and the second one is called bithorax C. So in antenna C we have many genes. Okay, in this group, okay, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 genes, while in the bithorax C we have 1, 2, 3 UBX, abdominal A and abdominal B, okay, involved in the most posterior segments, while antenna C includes labium, which is a mouth part expressed just or attached to the head at this position. We have the proboscis, which is also a mouth part, okay, where the antenna are attached, as you can see. We also have deformed, okay, expressed in this part of the head in purple. We have sex comb reduced, okay, sex comb reduced, the SCR, okay, which is expressed in the first pair of legs, in the first pair of legs. We have antenna P, which is present in the thorax and in the second pair of legs. Okay, while UBX will be expressed in the first ultrabithorax, will be expressed in the third pair of legs and in this abdominal segment. Then comes abdominal A and abdominal B to be expressed in the abdominal segments. Here I just have to mention one thing regarding UBX. Okay, it's expressed in the third thoracic segment, not the abdominal, the third thoracic segment, and in the third pair of legs. Okay, so you see we have in Drosophila these complexes. So we have 8 HOX genes localized on the chromosome 3, and they are grouped in 2 clusters of genes involved according to their localization on the chromosome throughout the anterior posterior body axis. So last time we mentioned that homeosis means mutation of a homeotic gene, and I mentioned that I will talk in this chapter about 2 main and two famous, very famous homeosis found in Drosophila. The first one is called ultrabithorax. The abbreviation is UBX, ultrabithorax, while the second one is called Antennapedia.